For more than 2 decades, he remained silent, watching from the sidelines as the royal story was carefully crafted by those in power. Darren McGrady, the former royal chef who served the Queen, Prince Charles, and both young princes, was no ordinary employee. His loyalty was to Princess Diana. Now at 63, he is finally ready to speak, and his words are not mere confessions, they are shocking revelations. At the center of this surprising honesty is none other than Queen Camilla. Darren's disclosures have deeply unsettled the long-held royal myths. It all began with one unexpected remark that shattered the royal silence and triggered a storm Darren never anticipated. As the world prepared for the grand coronation of King Charles III and Queen Camilla, the former royal chef, long connected to Princess Diana's memory, did something no one expected. He publicly expressed support for the event. "The first time I saw Princess Diana was at Buckingham Palace, at the royal wedding," Darren recalled. "Time has passed," he added, "and he believes it's possible to respect the present while still honoring the past." Though his words seemed calm, sensible, and even gracious, the online response was explosive. Social media erupted as royal supporters and Diana's loyal followers engaged in heated debate. Some praised Darren for his maturity and efforts to bridge past and present, but many considered his stance an unforgivable betrayal. "Diana's spirit will never rest if you celebrate the woman who hurt her," one comment said. Another was even harsher: "You were her chef and confidant, you should be exposing Camilla, not praising her." For years, Darren was viewed as a silent guardian of Diana's legacy, a man who held back out of loyalty and never publicly confronted the woman many blamed for Diana's pain. His silence, especially regarding Camilla, always raised questions. Despite numerous interviews, McGrady avoided the topic and never directly addressed Camilla Parker Bowles, once considered the most hated woman in Britain. Considering how pivotal Camilla's affair with Charles was to Diana's suffering, Darren's lack of commentary spoke volumes. The public never forgot. Even in 2005, only 7% of Britons supported Camilla becoming queen. So when she was crowned in 2023 and Darren publicly expressed approval, it felt like a break from everything he once represented. The headlines exploded. Darren McGrady was finally breaking his silence, revealing truths about Queen Camilla far more disturbing than expected. But before we dive into that, let's explore life inside the palace, Darren's early days and his bond with Princess Diana. Stay with us to see how Diana's chef became her trusted confidant. When Darren McGrady first entered Buckingham Palace in 1982, he was a young chef starting at the bottom, ranked 20th out of 20 in a kitchen dominated by strict hierarchy and deep-rooted tradition. Bright-eyed and enthusiastic, he never imagined that his path would lead to a close, meaningful connection with one of modern history's most beloved royals, Princess Diana. That same year saw the birth of Prince William and the start of a relationship that would span from royal kitchens to private sorrow, from professional service to heartfelt loyalty. Diana visited the kitchens at Balmoral Castle, and up close, she was stunning. At that time, Darren's daily tasks were modest, preparing mostly frozen vegetables and learning under senior French chef Gabriel Chummy, who taught him not only how to serve royalty but how to navigate the palace's unspoken rules. It was a world of formality and distance, but amidst the rigid routine, one person brought warmth and life: Diana. Darren first met her at Balmoral, where the royal family spent their summers. Unlike many royals, Diana didn't send servants with instructions. Instead, she came into the kitchen herself, barefoot and wearing a dressing gown, requesting snacks like yogurt, fruit, or orange juice for herself or the boys. Always polite, always expressing gratitude, and sometimes even helping to stack plates, her down-to-earth manner stood out in a place governed by strict hierarchy and silent protocols. She was genuine, and that sincerity left a lasting impression on Darren from the very beginning. In those early days, Diana brought life to the palace. She lightened the atmosphere at formal dinners with laughter, danced freely at official events, and brought a warmth that made the palace feel less like a fortress. McGrady always addressed her formally, yet their bond grew through the quiet familiarity of daily routines. One such routine was her nightly request for freshly made juice, carrot, celery, or apple, depending on her mood. Over time, however, Darren noticed subtle changes as her marriage to Prince Charles worsened, mainly due to his ongoing affair with Camilla Parker Bowles. Diana's appetite began to decline. One evening, she skipped her usual juice order. Concerned, Darren prepared it anyway. She drank it quickly, her eyes revealing she had been crying behind the palace walls long before the tabloids noticed. Darren sensed the emotional burden Diana carried. In 1992, the separation between Diana and Charles was finalized. She left Buckingham Palace and moved into Kensington Palace with her sons. Darren believed that chapter of his life was closed until he received a surprising call. Diana wanted him to be her chef. Without hesitation, he accepted. Life at Kensington was more intimate and personal, a stark contrast to Buckingham's grandeur. Yet, the pain remained. Camilla's presence still haunted conversations, and rumors swirled around the palace. One cruel whisper claimed Camilla told a friend, "He's officially mine. He always has been." Darren wasn't sure if Diana ever heard this, but he saw the toll it took on her. Despite the hurt, Diana remained poised and never lashed out. That grace was what truly defined her, Darren would later say. As their friendship deepened, Darren witnessed more of her pain, always centered on Camilla. The unlikely friendship between a chef and a princess was a source of confidences behind closed kitchen doors. Diana once said to him, "I always knew I would never be queen." Even in the calm she strived to maintain at Kensington Palace, the shadows of her past clung to her. The heartbreak of her broken marriage, the scars from years of betrayal, and the constant reminder of Camilla weighed heavily on her. Despite the polished exterior, only a few saw these vulnerable moments, one being her royal chef, Darren McGrady. One quiet evening after dinner, as Darren cleaned up, Diana entered the kitchen, not to eat, but seeking comfort. She stood silently, eyes downcast, her voice barely audible. "I've always known I'd never be queen," she whispered. "That woman who took my husband, she will be." Her words struck Darren deeply. He didn't know how to respond, but Diana wasn't expecting one. "You just had to listen," she said, wiping away a tear. In that stillness, years of sorrow poured out. Diana had long feared being pushed aside, not just as a wife, but as a woman once destined to be Queen of England. Prince Charles's steadfast attachment to Camilla had caused pain no newspaper could fully capture. Darren recalled the loud arguments, emotional clashes echoing through Buckingham's halls, always with Camilla's name at the center. When the Camilla Gate tapes surfaced in 1993, confirming rumors Diana had endured silently, the world was shocked. For Darren, it only made public what he had already seen behind the scenes. Diana never discussed the tapes with him, her withdrawn demeanor, loss of appetite, and heavy eyes spoke volumes. Her eating disorder worsened, and Darren, ever discreet, observed without interference. Then came Diana's 1995 BBC Panorama interview. Her candid statement, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded," shook the monarchy. For the first time, millions saw her pain in her own voice. It wasn't new to Darren, but it was now acknowledged by the world. She spoke openly about self-harm and seeking help in the wrong ways, giving strength to others silently battling similar struggles. Despite the grief, Diana began to heal. A year into her new life at Kensington, Darren noticed changes. She smiled more, ate better, and found renewed purpose. Boldly, she spoke publicly about her bulimia, transforming shame into strength and breaking silence for many others. She looked healthier than ever, Darren said. She was becoming herself again. The day Diana didn't return home was a quiet Sunday morning at Kensington Palace. Darren McGrady was busy in the kitchen, preparing a simple meal for her. She was expected back from Paris later that day, where she had been on a trip. The plan was to reunite with her sons, Princes William and Harry, before school resumed. It was meant to be a peaceful day of home-cooked food, family time, and a brief moment of normalcy amidst royal chaos. But everything changed suddenly. The television switched to breaking news: Princess Diana involved in a car crash. The announcement marked 20 years since her death in a Paris tunnel. At first, Darren barely registered the words. He thought it might be a mistake. but as news spread across channels, his heart sank. Diana was gone. She had died at 36 after a car crash, chased by paparazzi in Paris. Hope faded quickly as Darren rushed to work, still in disbelief. He clung to faint hope that the tragedy was exaggerated. But when the palace sent Diana's last will, reality hit. No return, no quiet dinner, no comforting her sons. She was gone. In the hours that followed, Kensington Palace was filled with sorrow. Staff who had supported Diana were heartbroken. Darren quietly remembered how her meal had been prepared and left untouched, waiting for her return. The world responded with shock, and the overwhelming grief echoed in the days after her death. Millions mourned. The world seemed to come to a halt as people laid flowers at Kensington Palace, mourning her loss. Elton John's re-recorded version of Candle in the Wind became the anthem of this collective grief. Yet, beneath the widespread sorrow, a quieter tension started to take shape. Rumors circulated that Camilla Parker Bowles wished to attend Diana's funeral, perhaps aiming to ease public animosity. Some viewed her presence as a gesture of goodwill, a step toward acceptance. However, Queen Elizabeth reportedly stepped in and insisted that Camilla be kept away. Darren believed this was the right decision. The world would never have forgiven her, he said. Camilla's attendance would have seemed like arriving at a crime scene she had helped create. With this decision, the scene was set for Diana's funeral, an event that would remain unforgettable. But another significant moment was yet to come, the wedding Darren refused to attend. Why did the tension between public mourning and private betrayal reach a breaking point? Stay tuned to find out. The wedding he chose not to attend was Darren's quiet protest against Camilla. When Prince Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles finally married on April 9, 2005, it was seen as a gentle end to a decade-long royal saga. The ceremony, held quietly at Windsor Guildhall and followed by a blessing at St. George's Chapel, was meant to bring peace and closure. Many regarded it as a long-overdue union. But for Darren McGrady, the former royal chef who served Princess Diana during her most painful times, it was far from a happy conclusion. "I didn't watch. I didn't attend. I couldn't," Darren later revealed. That day belonged to Diana in his heart. Though he had moved to the United States and built a successful catering business, his bond with the late Princess of Wales never faded. As Charles and Camilla's wedding neared, McGrady's phone buzzed constantly. The British monarch had approved Camilla being titled Queen Consort. However, these weren't messages of congratulations but quiet notes from former palace colleagues. Many who had once been close to Diana shared a shared unease. Something about the ceremony felt cold, wrong, as if history was being quietly rewritten. To McGrady, the marriage signified more than a union, it marked a turning point. He described it as a silent erasure of Diana's pain and legacy. "They got what they wanted," he said, "but the price was Diana." Even more troubling were the palace whispers after Camilla's arrival. Loyal staff who had once served Diana were suddenly reassigned or dismissed. Charities Diana had championed were overlooked. Her vibrant presence within the palace began to fade like a portrait quietly removed. One memory haunted Darren throughout this shift. Diana once confided softly, "I'll never be queen. That girl who took my husband will be queen someday." On the day of Charles and Camilla's wedding, those words rang louder than ever. Darren wasn't alone in noticing these changes. Inside the palace, things were far more deliberate than the public realized. Was Camilla's erasure of Diana's memory a calculated plan from the start? Stay tuned. For years after Princess Diana's tragic death, royal chef Darren McGrady remained silent, holding back grief and respect, but also because the truth he carried was too heavy, too explosive. His silence wasn't emptiness, it held deep sadness, unspoken memories, and growing discomfort with what was happening behind palace walls. When he finally spoke, his revelations shook the palace and beyond. Now in his 60s, McGrady had worked closely with Diana and saw her as a warm-hearted woman who brought life and compassion into the monarchy's cold halls. So when he saw what happened after Camilla moved into Clarence House and later Buckingham Palace, he could no longer stay quiet. The changes began so subtly that most wouldn't notice. But to those who knew Diana well, it was like witnessing her spirit being erased piece by piece. McGrady recalled how the cozy touches Diana had lovingly added to her private rooms slowly disappeared. The soft pastels she loved, family photographs she proudly displayed, and the English roses she adored, all vanished. Even her favorite flowers, forget-me-nots and lilies, were replaced with Camilla's choices. Furniture was rearranged or removed entirely. It didn't feel like a simple makeover, it felt like history being rewritten. To McGrady, this was more than interior design, it was Diana's memory being carefully and quietly wiped away. Perhaps the most painful sign was what happened to Diana's photographs. Once proudly displayed throughout the palace hallways, images of joy, warmth, and motherly love, they began to disappear. First, they were moved to less visible spots, then placed in private rooms, and finally removed entirely. Only one photo remained. McGrady said it was hidden in a room the public never saw. But even that last image didn't survive. After a few years, it too was taken away. For McGrady, that was the final blow. It no longer felt like Diana anymore. He said it was only a photograph, and even that was too much for her to bear. That was when he uttered the words that made headlines worldwide, "She is pure evil." He didn't say it to attract attention or in anger. Instead, it came from shock and a deep love for the woman he once served. He was convinced that what was happening wasn't by chance. It was deliberate, a calculated effort to push Diana out of both the literal and symbolic picture. Palace insiders dismissed the changes as a new chapter, a natural progression as Camilla took on a more visible role. But for McGrady and many who had known Diana personally, that explanation didn't make sense. It wasn't simply about moving on, it was about rewriting history. McGrady explained that the sharp contrast between the two women made the situation even more painful. Diana brought warmth, spontaneity, and joy to the palace. She would walk barefoot into the kitchen to get a glass of orange juice and quietly load blankets into her car for the homeless. Her presence was unmistakable. When Camilla arrived, that light disappeared. The atmosphere grew colder, the halls quieter, and the compassion Diana had infused slowly faded. Even as Camilla rose from private partner to queen consort, McGrady kept mostly silent, living in the United States, running his catering business, and quietly honoring Diana's memory through charity. But watching Camilla's rise stirred something in him. He supported the coronation because he believed in progress. Yet, progress didn't mean erasing the past. He spoke not from bitterness but from loyalty to Diana and the truth. She had endured so much, he said. The least I can do is protect her story, all of it, even the difficult parts. Within the royal family, every detail, even something as simple as a photograph, follows strict protocols. Unlike ordinary families, royals don't change their decor on a whim. Every item in a royal home, from furniture to portraits, serves a purpose linked to a carefully crafted legacy. Specific rules govern personal artifacts, like a wedding photograph, which aren't moved or altered without careful consideration. Royal tradition requires that any change to the display of items go through multiple levels of authority, from the master of the household to the Royal Collection Trust, and ultimately the sovereign. Nothing is removed or discarded without quiet decisions behind closed doors. But these rules were ignored when Princess Diana's iconic wedding portrait was taken down from public view at Clarence House. In this instance, there was no thoughtful process or respectful relocation. The photograph wasn't moved to a private area or archived for history. Instead, it was simply discarded, a breach of royal protocol. Camilla's arrival marked more than a change in atmosphere, it symbolized a complete break from the past. The photo, once representing Diana's place in the family, vanished without a trace. This act spoke volumes about the monarchy's wish to distance itself from painful history. Darren McGrady's explosive revelations sent shockwaves through the public, igniting a social media uproar soon after his interview aired. His heartfelt and honest words gave voice to suspicions long held, especially by Diana's devoted followers. They had always felt the beloved princess was treated unfairly during her life, and even more so after her death. "Darren, thank you for finally speaking the truth," wrote one user. You've voiced what many of us have felt for years. Thousands sent messages praising McGrady's honesty and loyalty to Diana. To many, his statements were a long overdue validation, a rare insider confirmation of what the public had only suspected. However, not everyone welcomed his words. Critics questioned why he waited so long to speak, wondering why he chose this moment, just after the coronation. Some accused him of seeking attention or exploiting old wounds. But his supporters were quick to defend him, noting he had remained silent for more than 20 years. "If anyone deserves to speak, it's him," one fan insisted. As McGrady's revelations rekindled Diana's legacy, old interviews, videos, and quotes resurfaced online. Fan accounts dedicated to her gained thousands of new followers overnight. The message was clear: the public hadn't forgotten the people's princess, and McGrady's words reopened a wound that never fully healed. Now, with his claims making headlines, Queen Camilla's carefully managed public image faces its toughest challenge yet. Over the years, she transformed from the other woman into a more accepted figure at Charles's side. But McGrady's insights shed a harsh light on her behind-the-scenes actions, prompting many to ask, what happens next? Supporters insist Camilla has earned her place and deserves to move forward. Yet, critics, especially Diana's loyal followers, are not ready to let go. To them, Camilla's rise to the throne is overshadowed by pain and betrayal. Palace insiders remain silent, sticking to the royal family's long-standing never complain, never explain rule. But silence may no longer be enough to calm the growing unrest. With McGrady's revelations surfacing just before Camilla's coronation, the stakes are higher than ever. The world watches her closely. How long can she keep up appearances? What are your thoughts on McGrady's shocking revelations? Share them in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe.